So, what we're doing on this special episode is you're going to read a sample of a book that you love, and then we will talk about that sample and move more generally about historical romance together afterwards. So, you're reading Mr. Impossible by Loretta Chase. Is there anything we should know about the book setup before we get into the scene that you're reading?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So the scene we're reading is actually very close to the end. So it's very towards the end of the book. This book is a Regency romance, but it takes place in Egypt. So it's an unconventional setting, I would say, for a historical romance, for a Regency especially. And the scene is from the perspective of the female main character's brother. So one of the things I love about Loretta Chase is the way she uses perspective.
I was going to ask, how spoilery can we be?
I mean, this book has been out for a very long time, so I think you can be pretty spoilery.
Yeah.
Okay, so just in setting up the context of the scene, Daphne is the heroine of the book, and she is an expert in hieroglyphs, Demotic, ancient Egyptian languages, but as a woman was not able to publish under her own name, so she published under her brother's. And the conflict of the book is he gets kidnapped and she's trying to find him, and she enlists the hero, Rupert, to assist her in finding her brother, who, as you can tell from all of the context, has sort of taken advantage of her, not like in a he's not like the worst brother ever. We've read worse in Regencies, but he has not appreciated her and he is benefiting from her skills. And that is their relationship prior to, as obviously give it away. They find the brother. The scene is from the brother's perspective.
Yeah, so they
So
found him. This is really towards this is like honestly the very end, but she does this thing that I really think is super interesting. The other thing to know about this book is that Rupert is he's not a cinnamon roll, he's not a golden retriever, but he is a himbo. Like he is the brawn and she is the brains. Like that is the entire setup of this book.
Love it.
So,
Love it. Awesome. Well, take it away whenever you want to.
all right. So Rupert's starting and he's talking about a time when they were stuck in a caved in tunnel in a tomb. He went on to tell that tale while Miles listened, wondering if he'd got drunk again without realizing, because it could not be his sister Daphne, of whom Carsington spoke with so much enthusiasm and admiration, as though, as though you're in love with her, Miles said. Then he said, because he hadn't meant to say it aloud. He stared hard at the mongoose. She licked his hand. In love, Carsing repeated. In love? No, sorry. Don't know what I was thinking. The heat, the shock. Couldn't believe it was my sister you were talking about. Brave and dashing and all that. Carsington's countenance darkened. Not but what I expect she'd rise to the occasion, Miles added hastily. He was not afraid of Carsington exactly, yet he had to admit the glare was a trifle daunting. In any event, it wasn't good for the man to become overwrought. Daphne had said so. My sister is a plucky creature, of course, continuing her work in spite of all the discouragement and so forth. You've got it backwards, Carsington said. It wasn't her rising to the occasion. It's the occasion rising to her. Egypt and this business with you and the papyrus have finally given her the chance to show what she truly is. She's a goddess, but human. A real goddess, not make-believe. She's beautiful and brave and wise and fascinating and dangerous, as goddesses are, as you know, in all the best stories. I'll be hanged, Miles said. You really are in love with her. The black eyes regarded him steadily. Then they regarded the cabin ceiling. Then the window. Then they came back to him. Do you know, Carsington said mildly, I've been wondering what it was. The end of my dramatic reading.
I mean, that is such a yummy little vignette of the like realizing that you're in love but not confessing it, protecting from the former protector, the goddess declaration. Oh my gosh. Laine, what do you think about this passage?
I love it because it also incorporates other pieces of the book. Like you've got the throwaway reference to the mongoose, but also the way that Rupert confesses everything to Daphne is by saying, I'm so mad you didn't tell me I was in love with you. I had to hear it from your brother. So there's this call out of like, he was never going to figure it out on his own. And everyone should have known that.
Yeah.
And so the fact that it's Miles who ends up being the one to tell him, like, I just love the way it ties the whole book together.
Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting. I would find that really annoying if someone was expecting me to tell them that they're in love with me. Like there's an emotional labor there that in real life, very unappealing. But on
Sure, but in
in
a
the
book where the
book,
brain and brawn dichotomy is so deliberately split, she has to do all the brain.
yeah, yeah. And he trusts her to tell him how he's feeling, and he'll
Mm-hmm.
accept that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that was interesting was the like element of danger that Rupert was emanating. Like he seemed friendly. I haven't read this book, full disclosure. I've read the one with the canals. Also a
Yes.
himbo. But where like he's protecting, he's kind of being, he's like angry that Miles hasn't seen Daphne for her worth. And then all of a sudden he's like reduced to the black eyes, look around the room. And like that is like, oh, like he's being more predatory because Miles hasn't seen her the way he wants her to see him to see her.
Well, and Miles is the one who put her in danger, is also what he's
Mm-hmm.
realized at this point. So the fact that she had to be brave and daring and courageous in the face of danger is Miles's fault.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Meg, is there anything from the scene that you want to call out?
I always like actually when I read romance, when I read just about any book and you see the main character from a third person's perspective. So we have a lot of Daphne looking at Rupert. We have a lot of Rupert looking at Daphne. We have a lot of their relationship. They think about each other a lot. And you know how Rupert sees himself and you know how Daphne sees Rupert. But here you see how other people see him. And I really enjoyed it a lot because another part of the book is that he has this reputation for being the hellion son of the Earl of Hargate. So that's why he was like kind of sent to Egypt to get him out of the way, right?
Yeah.
But again, the whole time you see him, like, sure, he's a himbo, but he's very competent and he's very supportive and he's there for Daphne. And so, of course, you see why she falls in love with him. But now you see Miles being like, why would either of them be into the other? So I really like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. We don't often get a third person looking in. You don't often hop into that third person's point of view. It's very dual point of view. You're getting
Yeah.
the two love interests and no one else.
Yeah. And she does. So Loretta Chase, at least in this book, she doesn't do head hopping. So you always know like whose perspective you're reading the scene from. And, you're not going to jump from Miles to Rupert, back to Miles. But she does incorporate those other perspectives. So like in this book, you also see the villain's perspective. You read from his perspective several times, which is kind of fun,
Fun, and also I can see how that could be really useful plot-wise to just get things going, and you don't have to be like, this is how the heroine guessed what the
Yes.
villain was thinking.
Yes. Well, it's also nice too because so in this book, there's this element of mystery. So Daphne and Rupert are on this expedition to find Miles. But the point of the book is not who done it, right? So this is not a mystery. And it's very clear from the beginning that it's not a mystery, right? Because we know from, I think, the third chapter, who the ultimate villain is. And that's kind of fun too, to see how Daphne interacts with the villain, who I'm not going to give away for you. But you see how what his ultimate gain is, what he wants to do ultimately, but then you see how so Rupert resents him from the very beginning, but not because he knows he's the villain, but because he's flirting with Daphne, right? And so I don't know, just all the
Classic.
different perspectives sort of on top of each other are really fun.
Yeah.